All right, you ready?
Ready?
Ready.
We actually say this when it actually makes sense we're saying it as well.
Of all the episodes, we've got to do it this time.
Now come along and listen to us talk with the Bon Jam. Go and have a lovely little walk with the Bon Jam. Maybe put it on and go to bed with the Bon Jam. Or grab yourself a slice of toast and spread with the Bon Jam.
Hello and welcome to Bon Jam with me, Simon Jeffrey, and I'm joined by the 20 baht to my 20,000 baht, if you can get this heap to go any faster. It's Mr. James Turner.
You know what? I tried to guess what you were going to say and compare me to, and I actually wrote it down because I was trying to predict what you were going to compare me to, and I wrote down Phu Yuk and Dom Perignon as the two things that you'd compare me to.
I think I've done that one before.
Have you? Oh, that might be.
I feel like I have on one of the in-between episodes, like for something else, but
Right, no.
It rings a bell.
Yeah, maybe you did.
How are you, James?
I'm good. I've missed doing this because it's been so long, even though...
Yes. May I say Happy New Year?
Yay! First episode of 2023.
We don't do this full time. We have other things going on, but...
I think we could set a goal of maybe getting to, I don't know, For Your Eyes Only. Maybe that's too
this year?
Like this year. Moonraker.
Let's see how many episodes it takes for you to be proved wrong. Anyway, yes, welcome back to Bon Jam for the time being, until we take another lengthy hiatus. Today, we are talking about the second of Roger Moore's Bond outings, The Man with the Golden Gun, from 1974. James, we've discussed this film at various points in the past when we've talked about the allies of the series. I think that came up in the last episode.
We teased this episode quite a few times.
We did. Yeah, but before we get ahead of ourselves, I wonder if you could just do us a favour by attempting as best you can to describe the plot of The Man with the Golden Gun.
Okay, but Bond is sent a golden bullet. As apparently from the Man with the Golden Gun. It was an assassin. So M, because it seems like he's now on the hit list for Scaramanga, he removes Bond from his mission because of this threat. So Bond's like, "Oh, great! Don't take me off the mission." So M slightly hints at the fact that, if you take Scaramanga out first, then you can all be all back to normal again. So Bond's like, okay, right, I'm going to try and find this Scaramanga and put a stop to him because I'll take him out first. And as it turns out, Scaramanga wasn't trying to kill Bond at all, but he was trying to kill somebody who's related to the mission that he was taken off of in the first place regarding some energy crisis thing. And so it turns out this Scaramanga's girlfriend that had actually sent the bullet to try and stop Scaramanga anyway. And then, I don't know, something about this energy crisis, some energy device thing that that Scaramanga wants that gives him some energy without... I don't know. To be honest, it lost me after that. This energy device can give off energy, and Bond wants to stop him having this energy. Literally, I have no idea. This film could have ended a lot quicker had certain things happened in a different way.
Yes, very well described. I feel like it is almost two plots sandwiched together, isn't it?
Yeah.
There's this whole sort of backstory of the energy crisis, which I think was inspired by a historical context of what was going on in the world at the time. But it provides initially a sort of backdrop for what I think is a more interesting story. But then it kind of unnecessarily wanders its way back into the plot later on, and we think, Scaramanga doesn't strike me as someone who's all that fussed with anything except his weird kind of fetishy lifestyle that he lives. And yes, this sort of MacGuffin of the Solex.
The Solex agitator.
Yeah, sorry, I set you up in the hope that you'd correct me. That paid off. Yeah, the crucial component of the system that converts the light to... I don't know. I don't know how based in science this is. It's largely irrelevant. And as you say, the plot itself is set up as Bond receives a mysterious clue in the shape of this threat that appears. And how did you find your most recent viewing, James?
When I was really young, I used to like The Man with the Golden Gun, and then I think you're the same. You read a book that actually said it's one of the weakest of the Bond films, and I disagreed with it. But then, as I got older, I started to realise actually, yeah, this is a weak Bond film, and because of that, it became one of my least watched Bond films. So when we went down to this film to watch for this, I was actually quite excited about watching it because it's been so long since I last saw it.
Yeah, I think we did talk about it once, and it was the was it the Essential Bond book?
Yeah, by Dave Worrell and Lee Pfeiffer, is it?
Yeah, that's the one. Yeah. Many of the James Bond films that I first became familiar with were recorded onto VHS off the TV at the time, and I didn't actually keep every single one, and I recorded over a couple. Live and Let Die was actually recorded over with The Man with the Golden Gun, and I watched that a lot of times, and I enjoyed it. You know, my radar for detecting the quality of any given film was not particularly sharp as a child, I think, and it was Bond. And no one had told me which were the best Bonds and which were the less popular ones, so I just kind of liked them all, almost indiscriminately. And I almost wish I could go back to a point in my life where I hadn't heard anyone else's opinion on these things, and I sort of tried to get into the mindset of my younger self going into it this time, to just kind of take it for what it was, not for what it wasn't, you know?
Yeah.
When we first decided to do the podcast, way back in 2018, I think it was.
Oh, wow.
I set up a Google Sheets document that I still refer to today each time we record. And it's essentially a large document with a page per film listing, you know, the various aspects of the film and my comments about them. So, you know, the plot, the portrayal of the villains, the girls, the allies, the gadgets, the music, the highs and lows and other comments. It was my way of keeping track of my thoughts. The funny thing is, when we decided to do the podcast, I went and watched all the films in a row over the space of a week and a half or something.
Yes, I remember you doing it, yeah.
And completed all of these spreadsheets for every single film at the time, because I was naively under the impression that we would get through these episodes within a few weeks.
Yeah.
You know, I've watched it at least 2 more times since writing my initial comments about it. But what's interesting is reading my comments from 2018 when I watched it. I clearly had a really hard time watching this film back then. You know, I'm reading my own writing back to me, and it's angry. It's like, why the hell is Hip doing this? What the hell is Sheriff Pepper doing? I don't know if it's the fact that, you know, what, last night watching it, I wasn't watching it by myself, and I just sort of put my notes to one side, and I sat and watched it with my wife and enjoyed it.
Yeah.
That, well, I say enjoyed it, that I sat back and tried to enjoy it. That I wasn't quite as unkind to it, and perhaps I was a bit more forgiving to it. My opinion on the film has changed throughout the years from loving it and not knowing any better to being perhaps overly persuaded by someone else's opinion in a book that I shouldn't like it at all, and going, oh yeah, okay then, to going, no, you know what, I'm going to think for myself, I am going to like it anyway, regardless. And then, actually, it's not actually that good. It's sort of come and gone here and there. I think I'm trying to, like, brace the listener for the grilling that this film is probably about to get. If you love this film and you have your own reasons to love it, I would never want to take that away.
Take back Tabasco!
Right away, Monsieur Scaramanga.
So we begin with the pre-title sequence.
It's the second pre-title sequence where in the row where we don't actually see Bond either, unless you count the statue of him.
Yes, we see Roger Moore doing his best to stand still like a statue. What we do see is a very close-up shot of a man's chest with 3 nipples. just, to let you know something's up. And then some bloke appears on this island.
Yes.
I've watched this film a bunch of times, and I can't tell you with any confidence who this guy is meant to be. Is he a gangster?
My theory is that he's the same guy from Diamonds Are Forever. That is my theory.
It's the same actor.
It's the same actor, but I like to believe he's also the same character. He doesn't die in Diamonds Are Forever.
Well, his character apparently is called Rodney.
Yeah.
In this film.
But he doesn't have a name in Diamonds Are Forever.
He turns up and he's apparently there to kill Scaramanga.
Yes.
And Knick-Knack takes him through into a room, like a gymnasium almost, in which to wait for him. And that appears to be some kind of... how do you interpret what goes on here, James? I'd be interested to hear what you think is...
My theory, and this is a really long theory, is that obviously the idea is nobody has ever seen Scaramanga. No one knows what he looks like. So Scaramanga has a little plan, just to test my abilities, I'm going to invite some sort of mob guy or some sort of bad guy to just come round on the pretense that, I've got a job for them or something. And then, with the idea that, if he gets, I don't know, maybe he's told Knick-Knack, or he'll get paid. Tell the guy who comes he's going to get paid if you take me out or something like that. And then, but Scaramanga's all planned this so he can use this as a little training exercise. So that's why he's invented this fun house to, it's kind of there to give Scaramanga a bit of a good time because he enjoys taking somebody's life.
That was my understanding, that that Knick-Knack sort of organises these various types of criminal and paid assassins.
Yeah.
To pay Scaramanga a visit and attempt to kill him as a means for Scaramanga to stay sharp and to hone his skills himself, with a sort of live training exercise of some kind. I think the issue with it is, though, that I don't think it really convinces me that Scaramanga is all that capable. It seems like Rodney has several chances where he could have killed Scaramanga before he even saw him there, because he gets the drop on him when he first appears.
Yes, you're right, yeah.
Scaramanga doesn't see he's even in the room before he's pointing a gun at him from behind that chair.
Yeah. Then it's just a rubbish shot then.
In that, well, he's sort of like shooting off to the side from the hip. It's like, do you just tell Knick-Knack to get the, bring me a hitman. Knick-Knack, bring me a hitman, but make sure it's not a competent one. Make sure it's some guy who's got an overly expressive face whenever he sees something mildly confusing.
Yeah.
But speaking of mildly confusing, his whole kind of setup there, that fun house, that gym, it's a real mishmash of kind of eclectic decor and stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
When Rodney's on his way through, he sort of walks past this kind of this sort of bug collection.
Oh yeah.
And then there's sort of like a mixture of different architectures and dangling skeletons and psychedelic patterns on the wall and all these strange modern art angular structures and mirrors and things, and some of the worst looking so-called wax figures that I've seen.
Speaking of which, am I right in saying that the cowboy one is Roger Moore again?
Oh, I don't know.
Who's just wearing a moustache?
Maybe. I don't know. I think what struck me on this viewing more than ever before was how strange Scaramanga is.
Yeah.
There's clearly a sort of sexual element to his enjoyment of what he does. Mm-hmm. There's a weird sort of ritual that he goes through before and after a kill, seemingly, with Miss Anders. Yeah. But he's also obsessed with Bond.
Yeah.
And goes to great lengths to fabricate the waxwork, and he regards it, and later in their conversation when they're having dinner together, he's just off his rocker completely. Like he would regard killing Bond as an indisputable work of art in his lifetime, like beyond any other challenge that he could find for himself. He would regard that as his greatest achievement.
Yeah.
To the point where it makes you think, I'm not sure Bond has done enough to earn this reputation. even over the course of all of the movies combined, like Roger doesn't carry that sort of weight with him. I don't feel like where he walks into a room and you go, oh my God, that's the guy who destroyed the volcano lair and the guy who foiled Largo's plans and Goldfinger's plans and Kananga's plans. He just sort of wanders in like, hello, darling.
It sounds like we're describing a really cool Bond film, which I think on paper it is. Like this villain has this weird obsession with Bond, and he kills people for a living, and he's a recluse and has a third nipple. Which I feel like it becomes a missed opportunity later on down the line.
Do you think Christopher Lee is up there among the greats?
I do quite like him as a character. I know you're saying he's weird.
He is undoubtedly weird.
Yeah.
I think there's a sort of like I say, I discovered layers to his weirdness yesterday watching it that I hadn't really picked up on before. There's a boyish giddiness to him where he's just like, he just loves to show off. He's just immensely proud of himself. There's a sort of oddly likable side to him where he just kind of wants to keep doing what he's doing with no obvious grand plan. He doesn't really have any wish. Well, I say he doesn't have any wish. I mean, later on, as I say in that conversation, he talks about if he could cause the death of 007, that would be his masterpiece or something. But earlier on, he seemingly genuinely tells Bond that he has no real desire to harm him, and he was perfectly happy to leave him alone and just say, go away.
Yeah.
I don't have a fight with you.
Personally, I've got nothing against you, Mr. Bond, so let us hope that our paths never cross again. Please don't try to follow me.
I think Christopher Lee could play any number of Bond villains. I'm not sure they get the best out of him as this one. I don't think there's anything wrong with his performance, but I sort of felt like he was a little bit underused.
Do you think that it's the material?
I felt like he was absent for a lot of it. And
he's silent for a lot of it as well, I find.
And doesn't say much for a lot of it as well. And, Christopher Lee's got a great voice, and they should use it. So anyway, we have our strange opening with Rodney, and through all mirrors and distractions, Scaramanga manages to get his hands on the golden gun, which is in the beak of a crow for some reason. He shoots Rodney, who staggers out into the light, and Roger Moore, as Bond, is posing there as I don't know what moment that's meant to be. Is that meant to be a laugh or a jump scare? I can't quite work it out.
Yeah. It's
Scaramanga, of course, is not surprised to see him because he knows that he has a life-size waxwork of Bond among his menagerie. But he uses this as a little chance to do some target practice and shoots off Bond's fingers, revealing it to be the waxwork. And we go into the title sequence featuring Lulu's song.
What do you think of Lulu's song? Is it one of your favourites?
Oh, it's cheesy, isn't it?
Yeah, I feel like it has like a bit of a rocky vibe at the start. It's like and I feel like it's trying its best to come from Live and Let Die's title track, but it's nowhere near the same quality.
I found the lyrics a little bit too literal.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I couldn't help but kind of doing a jokey, funky disco dance to it, but I think overall it feels a little bit too fast. Like I found Lulu sort of like running out of breath, getting those like wordy, descriptive lyrics in there, which sort of dive into kind of crassness at times and jokes around banging and all that stuff. And there's not much to say other than it's just, for me, probably the weakest song.
Yeah,
of the series.
I listen to the Bond themes every now and then, and when the Man with the Golden Gun comes on, I probably usually skip that one.
Yeah,
it's one of those where it's just like, it's not a fan.
What do you know about a man called Scaramanga, 007?
Scaramanga? Oh, yes. The man with the golden gun.
So we go back to MI6, and I think this starts off what I call the first of the grumpy scenes.
Yes, we remember your was it Room 101 pick for how angry everyone is in MI6 in this film.
But rewatching it again for this podcast, it made me realise, actually, I didn't realise how grumpy Roger Moore is. I feel like he's in a bit of a mood as well. It's like, oh, don't you know what this superfluous paffler is or something? And then it's like, a third nipple, sir.
I think they're going for jokes there. I think I like when Bond is asked what he knows about Scaramanga, and he takes a moment to think, Scaramanga, who's that?
Yeah.
And he goes, oh yes, and then rattles off
Yeah.
pretty much everything you could possibly know about someone.
Yeah.
Why, sir? And I think they're going for humour there.
Right,
but
right. Okay. I didn't get it.
I think when they repeat that same approach with the superfluous papilla, the memory gland thing, I think that one misses the mark a little bit more than the first joke attempt.
Yeah.
He does this weird kind of smug grin as he turns back towards M. If I found him first, that could change things. And he's like, M's just like not got time for it all. He's like, good day, Bond.
Yeah.
Go away. So he goes out, talks to Moneypenny, and she's a bit snappy with him as well.
Because they couldn't find the bullet. Darling. It's like, whoa.
This is the second one of Roger's entries that I've picked up on his overuse of the word darling. And just that approach to just like any woman is just like, hello, darling. And he was very darling-y in Live and Let Die. And from memory, I think he sort of tones it down from the next film onwards. Then we move to a sort of cabaret club where Bond is tracking down the bullet. Because I always find it interesting from one film to the next to find out how Bond ends up on these missions. And sometimes it's quite clunky in the setup and it's just dropped on his lap fully formed. And other times it's like this, it's like we've got a bit of a clue. And I suppose it's a bit like that in Dr. No, where it's just like this person hasn't reported in. Could you go find out what's going on?
Like a detective sort of element to it.
And I think what I'm discovering about myself is that I kind of like those setups where something just sort of arrives and it raises a few questions, and so the only real next step is to just start tracking down leads and trying to get answers, really. And so the first sort of part of this film, I was on board with last night on my viewing. I was kind of, he's making one logical step to the next, tracking down this bullet, and he finds it remarkably quickly. Just in the belly button of this cabaret dancer who he goes and schmoozes backstage and, tries to question about the death of one of his colleagues.
Yes,
is that right?
That's right, yeah.
Bill Fairbanks.
That's right, yes.
Who she claims to not know until she remembers. Ah, yes, what a terrible tragedy.
Even though it's shot right in front of her. Oh, yeah, you can't forget.
I'll never forget him. I wear his bullet in my belly button, but I forgot about him for a moment there. Yeah. In Roger's sort of unique way that only he could, his way of trying to get the bullet out is just to sort of snog his way around her body until he finds it.
I mean, obviously he swallows it when somebody attacks him. I mean, what was his plan if those people didn't show up? I guess
just to hide it in his teeth, and just drop it into a hand or pocket it.
Yeah.
But I don't know, I kind of like it. I kind of find that funny that he's like, you have a splendid abdomen or something.
He does say that, yeah.
But yeah, then some kind of big, burly, ape-like guys just burst in and start attacking, and there follows a somewhat unspectacular fight of just shoving and
pushing each other around the room.
And pushing.
Yeah.
Not a huge amount of choreography going on here, and the music is a little bit overzealous and trumpety at this point. John Barry is back, and we should be grateful of that, but I don't know. I think it's not his best work so far in this film.
No, I'm a fan of George Martin's score in Live and Let Die, and it does feel weak. It's like almost like John Barry might not have had enough time to do this. I don't know.
We criticised Live and Let Die a little bit for having large portions of unscored
parts,
action. Yeah. But actually, what's interesting is that this does as well, and this is John Barry.
Yeah.
The first half of that car chase later on has almost no music.
Yes, you're right.
So, it's not... I don't think he's, perhaps like you say, not had enough time to prepare or not found a groove yet.
Calthorpe, there's no such thing as a 4.2mm gun.
The fact that no recognized munitions manufacturer, military or civil, produces such a bullet doesn't mean it doesn't exist, 007.
Then, once Bond has taken the bullet to Q and Calthorpe for what I am going to call MI6 Grumpy Edition Part 2.
Yeah.
Chap who made the bullet, 007. Just needless anger in these scenes. Yeah. He then traces down the suggested name of Lazar, who turns out to be a sort of bespoke ammunition maker and gun maker for private clients. Most of them killers and criminals of various kinds. Which I actually I quite enjoyed this scene. I quite enjoyed the character. I thought he's I like how proud of himself he is, and
I mean it lingers on. There's a shot where one says, "Oh, Francisco Scaramanga," and then you see his face. For some reason, there's an overlong shot of his reaction of him finding out that he's been making bullets for Scaramanga. It's like, I mean, if you can't, people can't see what my face is like, but it's like. Well, my confidentiality with I can't remember what he says, but it's something about confidentiality.
Yes, he does. It's like he's like I couldn't possibly. That's like I'm far too prestigious a businessman to discuss business. He's trying to uphold the reputation of himself. I think by putting on this guise of being overly important when really he's just like the bottom rung of this ladder, really, in Bond's view.
Bond's quite brutal in this scene, I found. Not brutal, but quite, cold.
He's got very little time for nonsense in this scene. It's kind of...
He really does want to find out who Scaramanga is and where he is, because obviously he feels that threat of him, he's trying to hunt him down.
Yeah,
so
he does. He just takes a shot between his legs and loads for another one. I like this Bond.
Yeah,
I like this.
Yeah.
Come on, I've got no time for this kind of nonsense. So Bond tracks the bullets down, watches where they go. They get picked up in the casino by Miss Anders, played by Maud Adams in her first appearance. So he tails her, is about to follow her, and then gets cut off by another car that appears, and that's when Miss Goodnight appears, and your voice suggests a change.
Yes, this is a turning point for me.
All good up to there, I think.
Yeah, I was all on board.
Grumpiness aside from the MI6 lot, and
yes, grumpiness aside, maybe just it's just stressful month. I don't know. Goodnight's appearance. The film's in trouble if the secondary Bond girl is miles better than the primary Bond girl. And it's just her.
I was immediately thinking of Die Another Day when you said that.
I was thinking of No Time to Die, but
oh yes, that's also true.
Yeah, like her Bond's tailing this car. He's about to tail the car perfectly fine, and she pulls up in this vehicle, stopping him. I was like, oh, I'll just follow the number plate, figure out the number plate for where it's come from. And there was so many scenes in this film where I think the mission's complete, job done, and then Goodnight ruins it.
What I find interesting is a little behind the scenes story, and this is just from memory, so don't quote me on it, but Britt Ekland apparently learned that they were going to be making The Man with the Golden Gun and contacted the filmmakers to say, I'd like to play Miss Goodnight. And the response at that point was, well, we don't always adapt the books, word for word. We don't even know if there'll be a Miss Goodnight. And obviously it turned out that there was, and they were just like, well, let's give it to her because she asked for it. So I have to commend her on the fact that she just went out to get this part for herself.
Yep.
And it's written poorly anyway. I don't know if you could play it better than she did.
No, I don't think it's Britt Ekland's fault at all for how she comes across. I think it's purely the film that makes her as inept as possible.
So Bond drops her off at the hotel to meet with Miss Anders, and he bribes his way into the hotel room. I say bribes, he doesn't really have to bribe his way. He just says, "Can you open this door for me?" And the guy's like, "Yeah, all right then."
Oh, surprise!
Surprise! And he sneaks in, he clears the room. He's looking around, making sure the room is clear, there's no dangers. Now, where's Miss Anders? Ah, I can hear a shower running. There she is, she's in the shower. Perfect. I'll just pop my gun away and make myself comfortable for a while.
Yeah. And this is where, I know you said, Bond isn't a nice person. You don't find Bond a nice person, or he does some questionable things in Live and Let Die. I think you said that on the last episode, but I feel in this film, it's even more so. And this is just the first instance where I just feel like this isn't the Bond that I kind of really like, actually. This isn't the Bond that the suave, sophisticated Bond that I know or want to watch. It happens later on more so, but yeah, this is where it just feels a bit awkward.
I think it is particularly jarring to see Roger Moore do some of these things, because he went on to become far more of an influence on how the role was written as his films went along, and so his tendency towards kind of charming people rather than fighting them was written into the character more and more. But this is one of the more early incarnations of Roger Moore's Bond. I feel like I've heard various filmmakers say that they were trying to make him a bit too much like Sean Connery. But I can't think of any time where Sean Connery just opened with violence.
Yeah.
He, you could point out to certain scenes where he slapped a woman around, like Tanya, for instance. But that's at a particular point in that story where he believes that she's betrayed him.
Yeah, and it was resulted in the death of Karen
Yeah,
Bain.
and his friend has been killed as a result, and he thinks she's responsible, and he's emotionally compromised as a result of that. I mean, this is Bond just meeting a suspect, or just what he must know is just a minor cog in this machine at this point, or someone who's at the very least sort of just a bit of a victim of the thing herself. But he sort of doesn't seem to try any other approach before going for this quite heavy-handed approach. It's just like, I'm just going to wander into your room, rifle through your stuff, and then act sort of indignant when you get annoyed at me for doing that stuff. I mean, you could have approached this in a completely different way, but it's even more odd the way that it so quickly turns to them just like, well, let's just pop open this champagne and bottoms up, And she's just like, yeah, bottoms up, why not? Almost broke my arm off 10 minutes ago.
Yeah, go for it, yeah.
So very, very quickly then, Bond goes to the Bottoms Up Club, and on his way out, I guess, witnesses the death of Gibson that you mentioned earlier, who is the solar expert that for some reason ties it back into what mission Bond was originally on. Bond gets arrested at the scene and taken away by what turns out later to be Lieutenant Hip, who was just trying to get him away from the scene of the crime and onto this partially submerged liner that had burned down and partly sunk in real life around that time, a few years earlier in that. So I quite like that setup of the of that location with the MI6 sort of slanty office, secret hidden base.
Yeah,
I don't feel like we ever get a proper decent like wide shot of it to really do it justice. There's a lot of sort of angled doorways behind people, but I think it's a bit sort of wasted almost. But it's our first interaction with Hip, our first introduction of Hip, and
we see Hip, and his first thing to do is to get Bond away. That's what he says. He wanted to get Bond away from the police.
Yeah.
His name's Lieutenant Hip. He's a police. He works for the police, but also works for MI6. So why can't Lieutenant Hip just go? No, it's all right. It's all right. He's with me. This guy.
I don't know. Hip doesn't seem to have any kind of consistent characterization from one scene to the next.
But because of that, he knick-knack steals the Solex.
Yeah, but he's sort of like putting on this tough guy facade at first, and then when he's in front of M, he's like
I'm sorry,
a scared schoolboy. And then the next scene when they're kind of trying to look over the wall into High Fat's compound, he's just sort of giggling away and stuff, and his character's all over the place. And like we talked about him already in our allies list, and there's no corrections to be made here. I don't think. I think he's awful. But the weird thing is, he's not like awful in every scene. He's inconsistent throughout. Like I don't feel like I know who he is.
I mean, I even feel like Bond's sick of him from that first interaction. I feel like even the bit where he's like the peering over the top, Bond's just stood there with a cigar, like
take your time.
Yeah, whatever. Okay, I just want to get. Yeah. I don't want to be here. I'd rather be over there. See you later. Clears off without even saying anything.
And then by the time he breaks him out of karate school and
drives off without him.
Why? My notes from 2018 actually use the F word at that point. They say why the actual F does Hip drive off laughing, leaving Bond behind?
It would have been better if Bond was getting in the car as it was driving off.
Doesn't he say hang on?
Yeah, he says, yeah, well, I don't know. I mean, did he expect to be just hanging onto the roof? We couldn't even have just got on the car and then maybe a bad guy knocks him off and that's why he has to take the boat afterwards and that's what happens. I mean,
a lot of these things are like the filmmakers deciding what they want and then coming up with the laziest way to get there.
Yeah.
Like, they want a little kind of Enter the Dragon style Bruce Lee tribute scene with some martial arts in there, and we could have it so there are like these girls that turn out to be karate experts, and Bond could just stand back, watch them fight, and then someone said, so then what? Do they just follow him for the rest of the film? And they go, oh God, no, we can't have Hip and his nieces following Bond for the rest of the film. No, we need to get rid of them. Well, just have them drive off. What, and leave Bond behind? Yeah. Why not? Unless anyone's got any other ideas. Anyone?
Nope.
Hang on. So yeah, there's this very strange goings on around there. Like, God, all the bloody statues and people pretending to be statues in this film. It's just,
I know, yeah.
Really started to drag at this point with these sumo guys and squeezing his butt cheeks and stuff. Well, the whole martial arts sequence, that it's just so drawn out. That guy that just does a whole bunch of like air kicks and grabs and stuff for no reason, seemingly. I'm trying to project myself back to like, was it such a unique sight to see martial arts depicted on screen in a Western movie? Perhaps was it just a kind of a novelty in and of itself that was enough? Like, we take it for granted now that like every action scene, that like the actors are trained in all sorts of martial arts and stuff. But, there's all sorts of films that depict martial arts, in Western culture as well now. But I can't help but think that the only reason that those scenes are allowed to play out the way they do is just sort of because they were more of a novelty then, or because people were talking about Bruce Lee at that time.
I don't know.
I mean, in fairness, Roger takes a few decent kicks and beatings in that scene, and it's seemingly all him getting kicked in the chest and stuff. It's hard to believe that he could actually best some of these guys in a fight, though. I mean, Chula looks like he would kick Roger Moore's ass. So anyway, he drives off. He scares them off with a little propeller, and then he gets in that boat. And that poor kid who's he just wants to sell elephants. And,
I know, yeah. Because everyone's grumpy. This is Grumpy Scene Part 4 or whatever we're up to now.
Yeah.
Bond's just like, okay, thanks, see ya. throws him off.
Roger Moore apparently did not like doing that. He was like, that's just unkind. It is a little bit. I mean, I like to see that he's sort of saving him from danger by getting him out of the way, but don't promise the kid 20,000. Then what happens, James?
He drives so fast that he soaks Sheriff J.W. Pepper, who happens to be on holiday with his wife. The thing is, I know it's like, what the hell is he doing there? But to be honest, if his cameo ended there, I'd be like, oh, that's quite a funny little...
yeah, absolutely. And there are a number of times where I turned to Katie because she'd forgotten what happened, and I said, so what's that? You think that's it now? You think that's one and done? If there was ever a character who you could say with absolute certainty would never go to Thailand on holiday, it would be Sheriff Pepper.
Yeah.
I'd go as far as to say he would never leave the US. Like, what on earth has brought them to Thailand? It's just coincidence after coincidence that sort of really ask you to suspend disbelief at this point. But,
maybe for, like, in the last film, maybe he got like a little a free holiday to a destination of your choice. Oh, let's go to Thailand.
Yeah, I like the idea that it was like he won a trip to Thailand in the sort of police Christmas raffle or something.
Yeah.
And he's like, God damn, I don't want to go to Thailand. And his wife's just like, what's the matter, JW? I think that's the only way it makes sense, is if he won that prize and he couldn't change the location.
Yeah.
Because he's just spouting all these kind of racist slurs and things. And I think these days it's quite hard to justify any character talking the way he does.
Yeah.
Whereas I think at the time, like those were not acceptable views then. And I think the whole point is that they are ridiculing people who think that way.
Yeah.
You know, if you're listening to this podcast and you are someone who watches The Man with the Golden Gun and agrees with Sheriff Pepper, take a long look in the mirror and ask yourself some very serious questions.
Well, that's it. In Live and Let Die, you kind of watch him and meant to laugh at him because he's such a negative person.
He almost doesn't feel like the same character as in Live and Let Die.
No,
he's sort of dialed up even further. He's got like bright orange hair for some reason. I mean, I laughed. I'm not going to lie.
Well,
I laughed yesterday.
Yeah, and that's what he's there for. It's just the ridiculousness. If you can look past the ridiculousness of the situation, you might get a bit more enjoyment out of it.
If that was just like, oh, he makes that appearance and then that was it, that would be it.
Yeah,
it'd be fine.
Yeah.
Then he gets pushed in the water by an elephant, and even then, if that was it, I'd be like, okay, you've had your fun.
Yeah.
But it's not it. But meanwhile, Scaramanga kills High Fat. Who cares? High Fat's
dead. Oh, see,
I forgot High Fat was in it.
Yeah, I know.
I forgot Chew Me was in it.
Oh yeah. To be honest, on the subject of Chew Me, I do feel like there's a lot of seediness in this Bond film.
Yeah.
The location, the bottoms up club, Chew Me, swimming nude, squeezing people's bum cheeks. I feel like out of all the Bond films, this is the seediest, dirtiest one. I feel like it doesn't have the exotic or the beautiful like locations that we're used to, other than Scaramanga's actual place where he lives.
I don't know. I think Diamonds Are Forever comes close.
Yeah, maybe.
Because I think there is a sort of exoticism, if that's a word, about the Asian locations. It's not like just Las Vegas, which is renowned for being a sort of place of artifice.
Yeah,
and
you're right.
Excess.
Yeah, Diamonds Are Forever and Man with the Golden Gun maybe up there. And, both of those films I don't have high regards for.
It does make me wonder if Guy Hamilton, I cannot work out whether he's good or not. As like what's his aggregate score overall? He's got Goldfinger under his belt, which is a widely renowned classic.
Yeah.
That is probably the two of us feel less fondly about than the mass audience consensus. There's Live and Let Die, which is objectively not as good as Goldfinger, but that we like more, probably. And then there's Diamonds Are Forever and The Man with the Golden Gun, which are probably both down the bottom of the pack somewhere.
Yeah.
He's clearly got his own sensibilities. I think he's a little bit sillier than some of the others. Certainly doesn't take things quite as seriously as Terence Young or John Glenn or Peter Hunt. And he certainly brings a certain amount of style to things sometimes. Like, there's a sort of frivolity, a silliness to things. What he's certainly not, as far as I can tell, is an action director.
Yeah.
Because all of his films suffer from, like, kind of lackluster chase sequences of some kind.
And crashes that happen, like, for no reason. Like, that guy who randomly drives a car off a ramp and crashes into a market
sort
store,
of
whatever is there.
Slapstick police pile-ups and things. You get them in Diamonds Are Forever. Has got a terrible car chase around Vegas where it just goes in circles.
Yeah.
Live and Let Die has an overlong boat car scene, some of which is good, but some of which again is just police cars skidding into each other.
Yeah.
And this is again just cars just slowly sliding into each other, crashing. That guy, those cutaways of drivers go like, "Oh, I'm gonna crash." It's like he's not an action director, but like, save for one incredible stunt in the middle of this film,
Yes.
which
is ruined by something else.
which is
we
ruined
mentioned so many times.
which is ruined by what my wife referred to yesterday as a Jimmy whistle. I said, "You what? Do you mean a slide whistle? Or a Swanee whistle? I've never heard it called a Jimmy whistle." Correct me if I'm wrong, people, but from now on, it's just going to be known as a Jimmy whistle as far as I'm concerned, because it's fun. You just Googled that to check.
I just Googled it. I feel like I've heard of that, a Jimmy whistle, for some reason. But
You two are clearly cut from the same ludicrous cloth. So anyway, Bond is sort of having drinks with Goodnight, and they have some lovely foo-yuck together.
Foo-yuck.
And Bond says, well, we've pretty much done all we can do, and there's really nothing we can do until later.
Or is there?
Or is there?
Oh, you sly 007.
And Goodnight's like, "Oh, I'm tempted, but, just passing time as one of your fancies isn't really my style."
Yeah, I was like, oh, that's mature of.
So I said to my wife, just listen to her say this, yeah? Okay, now start counting and see how long this lasts. And it is less than 30 seconds. The very next scene, he's like, "Oh, my hard-to-get-at act didn't last very long, did it?" I'm like, why put it in there in the first place, then? Why didn't they just have a drink? And she goes, "Yeah, sure, let's go back to your room."
Yeah.
What purpose did that serve? It's like, the writers, they tried to give her depth. And what's her excuse for giving in? "I'm weak." Yeah, no.
And to make matters worse, Andy Rand pops up. So Bond decides, I'm just going to shove you in a wardrobe whilst I do it with another woman.
Again, I did laugh. Maybe it's wrong of me, but I did find that funny. Poor Goodnight.
Yeah, I feel like because she's inept as a character,
Yeah.
Bond knows that anyway, and she'll just...
I feel like Goodnight knows full well what she's getting into with a night with Bond, that she's never going to be his only one.
Yeah.
That she kind of just signed up for it anyway. It was like, yeah, I'm weak, whatever, let's just do it, even though we won't talk, we won't last, So by the very next scene, that's pretty much it for Miss Anders. She sets Scaramanga up and then pays the price for it.
Yep. With that, you obviously you get that conversation at the boxing ring with Bond finally meets Scaramanga, and I did, as I said before, I do find that an interesting conversation that they have. And Bond finds the Solex on the floor. She must have dropped it when she got shot or something. I don't know. And manages to give it to Hip, who actually does something decent here. Hip, he gets it, but then decides to give it to the worst person you could possibly give it to, which is Goodnight. I just felt she was utterly useless.
Particularly in the scenes that follow, where she's just like, "Oh, I've got the car keys. Yeah, they're in my pocket. Oh, I've got the Solex as well."
Yeah. But the thing is, the mission is done. Scaramanga says to Bond, "I've no quarrel with you. As I'm happy to leave it, and we can go our separate ways." Bond's also got the Solex because Goodnight's got it, so they've got the Solex and they've got Scaramanga out of his hair. So job's done, mission's complete. But Goodnight decides, I'm going to have a little nosy at Nick Nack's car. Gets shoved in. Okay, we don't have the Solex anymore.
I hadn't really thought about it like that, but yeah, the only real reason it continues immediately is because they kidnap Goodnight, isn't it?
Yes,
and she's got the
Solex.
Solex.
It was over. It was over.
What's Bond going to do though if Goodnight's got the car keys and they can't drive after him? What's he going to do?
Well, the only thing is, you're going to have to flag down a car and steal someone's car from... Oh, wait a second. No, all the cars in car showrooms all have keys in the ignition, so he can steal one of them, can't he?
Yeah, he stood right by a car showroom.
Yeah. So he steals a car that's in a car showroom,
and the car is empty, isn't it, at the time? Am I remembering that correctly?
No. There's somebody in there as well.
Oh, is it like a customer is like in there?
Yeah. Someone who must
like
live
a local
who
wants.
Yeah, local probably. Yeah.
Not some.
No,
not someone who's on holiday. Wait, sorry.
Yeah, it turns out Sheriff J.W. Pepper is the person in the car who's wanting to buy a car from Thailand and obviously maybe bring it all the way back to
Sheriff Pepper, the
Sheriff Pepper,
Louisiana State Police.
Yeah, that guy who lives, like hundreds and thousands of miles away.
I think because on the window behind Bond there's a sign that says like American Motors or something.
Yeah.
Because it's an AMC, isn't it? I think that's what.
Yeah, AMC Matador.
I like to think that he just like that's that kind of stereotypical American tourist where they're like, oh hey, there's an American car showroom in Thailand.
Yeah.
We got to check it out.
Yeah, it's got the word American on it.
Yeah, it's like you go to like a far-flung foreign country and you're like, hey, they've got McDonald's here, and you just have to go there. I reckon he just went. He wanted to just go drive a car. I'm giving it a lot of credit here, but why the hell?
He does ask for a demonstration.
Why the hell was he? What? Why?
Yeah.
So anyway, Bond is now partnered up with a character who should have just not returned. Even if they came back for a scene earlier on, they should not be in the car showroom. But here they are. Coincidences continue, and so does this long slog of a car chase.
Yeah,
that's really only building up to this one stunt. But it takes a long time to get there. A lot of kind of just driving in a straight line.
Yeah,
I'm sure it all felt terribly exciting to do. I drove up on the curb there for a moment. It's just filmed with no sense of urgency or real style.
Yeah. It's just an opportunity for Sheriff Pepper to lean out the window and go, "Oh, I gave you a heap of junk off the road," or whatever.
I do love that scene though. He's got his whole upper body hanging out of the car, and his hair just
like flying away.
Yeah. Then he, accompanies Bond. They bust in on Scaramanga just as he takes off in his car plane thing. Again, a bit of a sort of throwaway gag, but hey ho, we need to get him to his island somehow, I suppose.
I'd love to know, like, considering we know what this island's like, where he lands that plane. Considering it doesn't float on water,
just sinks it probably.
Yeah.
But when Bond is on his way to the island in that plane, I think that's the best Roger looks in this movie.
Yeah, it's cool.
And one of John Barry's best musical cues in the film.
Yeah. We might take the mick out of the score, but there are some good parts of the score that are in it.
I think with John Barry's score is I think he just watched the action and just thought, I'm not taking this seriously. I'm not going to score this like there's any stakes here.
Yeah.
So he just sort of scores it like with that same boom, 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 boom. He kind of scores it like it's a Mickey Mouse adventure sometimes.
Yeah.
And I just like to think that it's just him going, no, I'm not bringing out the big guns for this. So Bond arrives and I think the film starts to pick up a little bit again. We've had a bit of a slog in the middle there, but Christopher Lee starts to step into his element here. Maybe it's a little too late. Maybe you're already tired by this point, but he starts to give him a tour of his island and show him around the energy place that's... I still don't quite understand, but...
No, I mean, it's, to me, the plot is like, actually, he's producing clean energy.
Just let him do it.
Yeah, let him do it. He's clean energy for his island. He's not causing any pollution to the islands around him. It's fine. He's not a bad guy.
What's the problem?
Because he kills people with a weird, pervertish way.
He said Bond says that the oil sheikhs will pay him just to keep it off the market.
Yeah.
So he's saying that Scaramanga stands to get very, very rich from people in the oil industry just by not making his breakthrough publicly available. Well, okay. Leave him alone then.
I do feel. I feel like the only reason why, because I imagine the writers probably thought, hang on, this isn't as evil as we thought, so we'll give him a big gun that it also powers, and just use it to blow his plane up, and that shows you how evil he is. Well, to be honest, he's just got a gun, a just more powerful gun from the energy.
That's what I call trouble. So they have their little dinner, which we've spoken about, and then they have a little duel, and it's a little bit plodding, but it's good stuff. It's the stuff you remember, I think.
Yeah.
And then Goodnight has to contend with the overwhelming forces of Scaramanga's many, many henchmen. Oh no, wait. It's just one bloke. Who appears to be on a non-speaking extras contract. In scenes where it looks like he should be saying things. It's like...
Instead he just
he hasn't been paid to speak, has he? I think it was true to some extent that you'd get you'd get like one fee if you didn't say anything and another fee if you said a word.
Well, that's how it was when I used to be a supporting artist, as we like to call them.
So you think they paid him less because he just beckons?
I reckon so. I mean, for some reason they didn't want to hire actual mannequins for Al Capone, even though they don't say a single line. So they've actually hired actors. Maybe actors are actually cheaper than
probably cheaper to buy a supporting artist than a dummy to make one at the very least,
which is ridiculous.
So Bond, Knick-Knack convinces Bond that he should try and kill Scaramanga, and Bond then gets pulled into the funhouse himself. Which is weird, but again, kind of unique and memorable at the very least. I would have liked to have. I don't know how they would have done it, but I'd have liked to be able to get an idea of the geography of that place a little bit more clearly. I would have liked to have maybe seen a nice wide shot or a schematic or something.
I mean, I've got a book here, actually. Let me just have a look at this book.
James is reaching for a book off camera. Here we are. Is it this like DK cutaway?
Yeah, the DK thing, and I used to really like it because it used to go through the entire funhouse.
I'm pretty sure they just make up stuff though.
Oh yeah, they do. Yeah, but I used to quite like it. Yeah, those sort of things. Yeah, but he would have been nice with a wide.
So that's it. There really. Scaramanga is killed because Bond poses his own statue. Presumably, he got dressed into those clothes off camera.
Yeah. It's,
Goodnight throws a guy into the liquid helium or whatever it is.
Yeah.
The whole place starts to just explode. Bond tries to get the Solex agitator back because that, for some reason, still matters.
And
Goodnight ruins things with a bum, pushes some buttons, and the whole thing explodes and they escape on a big old junk. They look like they're going to settle down for their slow boat from China or whatever she says.
But oh no, Knick-Knack is still here, and we've not really properly talked about Nick Nack.
He's a bit of fun, isn't he?
Yeah,
He's memorable again.
Is memorable, yeah.
Makes some weird decisions. It's like, really, you're going with the knife, are you? You had the drop on them, quite literally, but yeah, this film continues and these characters survive because of the idiocy of their villains, not because of the smarts of the good guys.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a weird scene. It almost sort of cartoonizes the size difference between them.
Yeah, I would have been happy with him being left open as to whether he survived from the explosion on the island or not, or just see him just fleeing the island or whatever. I don't know. I don't think he needed this fight scene. I think they're just used to having a fight scene at the end.
It's a bit like a Live and Let Die thing, isn't
yeah,
it?
with Tee-Hee.
You go, oh yeah, I forgot about Tee-Hee. It's a bit like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot about Nick Nack. It's still one more bad guy to kill.
So he puts him in a suitcase, takes him outside, and we're left thinking for a brief moment that he might have thrown him overboard, but that's later revealed not to be the case. For some reason, some weird phone appears next to them, and M has got the number to the junk.
Yeah. It was like Scaramanga, the person who nobody knows what they look like or know where he lives, yet has a personal phone.
There you are, Bond.
Yeah.
At that point, I just sort of threw my hands up and was like, "What? I'm out. I give up at this point."
Yeah.
Good night. Sleep well, my dear.
No need to fear. James Bond is here. That's the best part of the song, to be honest.
And that's The Man with the Golden Gun.
Yes.
Thoughts?
Well, as you said, it has its moments. The plot starts off quite interesting, and I enjoyed it at that moment in time. Bit like Die Another Day, it goes downhill when the main Bond girl arrives, and then just the whole Solex plot was unnecessary. It could have just purely been about Bond versus Scaramanga.
Yeah, I thought it would be a clearer sort of high point and lots of low points for me until I watched it again. I think for me the high point is actually the stuff leading up to Lazar for me, and that's
I was going to say Lazar's scene is probably my high point.
Lazar's scene and maybe the sort of the dinner with Scaramanga, that kind of conversation there. But I think honestly the stuff leading up to and the Lazar scene, the low point is pretty much everything else.
Is there a low point?
I didn't dislike Sheriff Pepper this time as much as previous times.
Even though it is ridiculous why he's there and stuff, I can overlook that.
I think it helped watching it with someone else less familiar with the film. So I could be oh, I've just remembered what's about to happen, and then enjoy their reaction to it rather than dwell on my own feelings about it.
Yeah, and even as a kid, those Sheriff Pepper points were something I quite enjoyed as a kid, and that's why it was probably there.
Honestly, I mean, apart from certain characters who are poorly depicted, like Hip or Goodnight or Sheriff Pepper, whether you debate whether he should have come back or not, I think genuinely the weakest part for me is just that really slow slog from when they exit the kickboxing part, really up until he arrives on the island. And that includes, unfortunately, that corkscrew jump in the car. Yeah. But the car chase is just so slow.
Well, my low point would be just Goodnight getting thrown in the boot.
Yeah,
that it's just like, oh yeah, the mission's done.
Oh, I tell a lie. There's one other bit that for me is up there, and that's it's the part where Bond sneaking into High Fats, fighting the sumo people. Getting knocked out by Nick Nack and then waking up in the karate school. That part that part there,
That section.
leading up to the forgot to tell you,
Yeah.
and that part, forgot to tell you, your father owned a karate school. Maybe my single least favorite scene is the sumo wrestlers scene.
Yeah.
Because one of the guys just seemingly gets laid out with like a single kick. The other guy just gets him in a bear hug and hisses and squeezes the air out of him while Bond gropes his backside.
Yeah.
All of that leading up to those sword fighters, one of them who seems to die apparently.
I know, yeah.
The guy does that fight on his own, and then I mean, I kind of vaguely like Bond kick him in the face, and then
Yeah, I didn't mind that bit.
I don't mind the martial arts fight that Bond has
Yeah.
with either of them, really. I like when he kicks him in the face, and then I like the look that Chula gives when he's like keeping his eye on Bond as he bows. But other than that whole bit is just like, oh god, get a move on. Yeah, it's just lacking. It's just, but I have to say, like, and this might give away some of my feelings about more recent Bond films, but I would rather watch a weak Bond film. Well, I draw a distinction between a weak Bond film and a bad Bond film. And sometimes a bad Bond film would be all right as a film if it weren't a Bond film.
Yes.
And there's been a couple of them lately.
Mm-hmm.
No Time to Die, I think, would be a pretty good film.
Yeah.
Is it a Bond film? That's up for debate. This is a Bond film. There's no denying this is a Bond film. It may be one of his weaker outings, but everything is left intact.
Yeah.
By the end, everything is sort of preserved and
Yeah.
and the way it's meant to be, ready to do the next one.
Yeah, and it has the things we expect from a Bond film.
Yeah, it doesn't do any of them
its formula
particularly well, but it doesn't damage anything beyond this film.
Yes.
So I would not rank this like bottom of my pile. I would go to this probably before I would go to a film that actually makes me feel sad for a day or two afterwards, which was the case when I last watched Spectre. And I'll be honest, I haven't been able to watch No Time to Die more than twice. I just haven't been able to bring myself to it.
No, it's a tough one.
Anyway, that was The Man with the Golden Gun. I feel like I built this one up in my head as a bit of a slog to get through, and I wasn't necessarily looking forward to having to rewatch it. But because I think I'd built it up as a bit of a slog, I think that may be the way to enjoy it. It's just to prepare yourself that it's going to go slow. It may not even hold up to the Bond films either side of it or the ones before it. It's not a case of like, well, all films back then were like this. This was sort of weak, even amongst the ones that surrounded it, really, I think. But there's some enjoyment to be made if you adjust yourself appropriately and you just are patient through the worst bits.
No, I agree.
So we'll wrap that up. That was The Man with the Golden Gun.
Can we do some games with James?
Let's play Games with James.
Yeah.
Games with James.
Did you think for a moment that I wasn't going to do Games with James? I'll be honest with you, James. I'm not confident on this game. It was very last minute. If it so happens that one of the weaker Bond films has one of the weaker Games with James to accompany it, then that somehow seems fitting. So
poetic, yes.
Well, we'll see. I'm going to call this one the Lost in Translation game.
Oh, God. Right, okay.
So what I have done here is I've taken the names of some of the Bond film titles.
Yes.
And I have turned to my good friend Google Translate. I have translated some of these names from English into Spanish.
To Spanish, okay. This
And
is all
then-
Spanish.
I have taken the Spanish translation and I have copy-pasted it into Google Translate. But I've instead of telling Google Translate that it's Spanish, I've told it that it's Portuguese
Okay.
because certain words are similar, right?
Okay. God, this is going to be confusing.
So it's gone from English to Spanish and then from Portuguese to Swedish. Right?
But it's doing it as if it thought it was Portuguese.
Yes.
Even though it's Spanish words. Right,
Yes.
Okay.
And then I've taken that Swedish translation of what it thought
Oh my
was
God.
Portuguese, and I've translated it from Danish, because Swedish and Danish have similarities. I've translated the Swedish into from Danish to
Danish.
German. Yeah,
Oh,
not
wow.
from one to the next to the next to the next. No, there's a sort of gap in between each of these stages.
Yeah. Okay.
So from English to Spanish, Portuguese to Swedish, Danish to German, and then I've actually tweaked it a little bit in some cases, German to Dutch to English. Yes?
Okay.
So we've
German
made
to
a-
Dutch and then Dutch to English.
Yeah, in some cases, where there wasn't a direct link, because Dutch and German are not all that similar. Sometimes it translated one or two words, just going German and then Dutch to English, but sometimes they need a little help in between. Needless to say, these have been put through the Google Translate mixer to see how they came out. So,
Okay.
I think I've got 10 just about, because a lot of these actually came out more or less intact. But
Really? Wow.
what I'll need from you, James, is a sound in
Oh,
which
damn it.
a sound I can insert if you get any of these right.
You know what? I forgot all about the games with James' right and wrong answers. I know one for no.
What's your one for no?
Oh, shut up, you.
Right.
I'm just going to go for that.
Well, just throw in any old one for yes.
Oh, correct, 007. I just throw something.
Yeah, let's not
Yeah,
overthink it. So, the first one is Today's Light Lives On.
Today's light lives on. I'm going to say The Living Daylights.
Correct, 007.
Well done.
Yeah.
The next one is You Only Live Occasionally.
It must be You Only Live Twice.
Correct, 007.
Yes, of course it is. I just like that one. The next one is The Morning Does Not Stir.
Ooh, nice one. The morning does not stir. Oh, that is a toughie. I'm going to say Tomorrow Never Dies.
Correct, 007.
Oh, yes.
The next one we have is Where No.
It's got to be Dr. No, surely.
You would think, wouldn't you?
Oh, shut up, you.
Where No is somehow Thunderball.
What? Oh, my God.
I think
Well,
what
maybe I'm not
happened
getting-
there is that it translated from one language to another, and then it didn't do anything with it for like 3 stages because it couldn't. So it
Yeah.
just stayed the same for like 3 stages, and then
Yeah.
one of the languages near the end was like, "Oh, I know that word." The next one we have is To Kill Utsicht.
To kill?
To Kill Utsicht.
Utsicht. That's not even English.
No. That word clearly went through the ringer and never came back out again. To kill Utsicht.
I'm just going to go with License to Kill.
Oh, shut up, you.
That is incorrect.
Oh, my God, what? Go on.
That was A View to a Kill.
View to a Kill.
I don't know what that means or where it got lost. I'm glad you haven't got them all, because if you did,
Yeah.
I'd feel like I'd failed. All right. The next one we have is Square Rain.
Square Rain. Square Rain.
Square Rain.
It must be like a single word title, surely. It's got to be. Maybe, I don't know. I'm going to go for Spectre.
Oh, shut up, you.
No.
Oh.
No, that was Skyfall.
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, that makes sense.
You say like it makes sense. Square Rain does not make sense.
Well, rain comes from the sky.
yeah.
and
I
that's
don't know
how-
why. It must have... The word for square and the word for sky must be similar in
Yeah.
Portuguese or Spanish. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Okay, the next one we have is Art No.
Right, okay, this has got to be Dr. No, surely.
Correct, 007.
That one is Dr. No. All right, the next one we have, I don't know what these words are. This has gone into the translate and just never come back out again. Consuelo Menge. I'm reading them like if they were English words. That's how you pronounce them.
Yeah.
Consuelo Menge.
I'm gonna go for Spectre again. some random thing for Spectre.
Oh, shut up, you.
Consuelo Menge. I think, weirdly, if you put that in to translate, it thinks it's like Luxembourgish or something,
Right.
which was not one of the options. But Consuelo Menge, in a language, means something along the lines of "comfort me."
It's Quantum of Solace then.
It is Quantum of Solace. Okay, next up we have...
What question is this?
Number 9.
Oh, God, 2 more left then.
Yep.
Okay, I was enjoying this.
Cellulose.
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 Cellulase.
As in one word, cellulose.
I mean, I don't want to go for Spectre again because I feel like I've said it too
I
many times.
can give you a hint if it helps that most of Spectre came out as Spectrum.
Okay, right, okay.
It didn't really do anything fun with that. Cellulose.
Cellulose.
Does the word mean anything to you?
I wonder if, like, an octopus might be, I'm going to go for some other word for octopus, and that's kind of been lost in translation, so it's octopusy.
Correct, 007.
That is correct.
Oh, yeah! What?
I don't know how it changed to cellulose.
No.
Just be like, what is octopusy? I don't know.
I felt like it had to be a single word title, so that's why I narrowed it down to that. And
all right, here we go. The final one
Yep.
is confidential.
Confidential. Oh, it must be For Your Eyes Only, surely. For Your Eyes Only.
Correct, 007.
Yeah, there we go.
Well done, James. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I did actually, yeah.
I was lucky that I even had enough to make this quiz.
No. Oh, I didn't get them all right.
But there you go. I think you got 6, but I will let the text-to-speech person confirm that and say some nice things about you.
Which aren't nice at all.
Well, you never know. This could be the time.
James did indeed score 6 out of 10. Although he himself is at least an 8. Am I right, ladies?
Oh, thank you, text-to-speech person.
Oh, you played me there. Oh, I think she's got something else to say.
Oh.
Sorry, I forgot to dock him points for the accent. He's probably more like a 5, all things considered.
See, no, it wasn't as nice that time.
No, that's just plain nasty.
I got you back. Right, there you go. That was Games with James.
Games with James.
And there you have it. That was our The Man with the Golden Gun episode of Bond Jam. Hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed being back in the saddle.
Yeah.
Is that the phrase?
Yeah.
Don't know what I'm talking about.
I thought you were going to say back in the saddle as well. Why do I know that? Is that a Bond
know.
line as well? Is that a Bond line? I feel like that is a Bond line.
I think it's a phrase, just in general, isn't it?
Yeah, but I feel like it's a phrase that Bond has said before.
Probably in A View to a Kill. There's a lot of
probably.
saddles in that.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway, we're not
In the
doing
saddle.
A View to a Kill
That's
next.
it. That's where it's from. Yeah.
We're doing our in between episode on a subject yet to be decided at this point.
Yes. Yep. Well, I'm sure we'll do something obscure or interesting. That we can do.
We'll see. Hopefully, it won't be as quite as long. Oh, I say that every time. I've got to stop saying this. Right. I'm not going to promise when the next episode will be. Just turn on your notifications if you like this episode. Great. Sorry, there are not more of them. But
Hey, we've been going a while, so we'll.
Yeah. We'll be back. You can get in touch with us in the meantime. You can follow us on YouTube if you search Bond Jam. You can follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at BondJamcast. There's not much there, but you can use it to message us, and we will get those messages. That's probably the best thing you can use them for, really. There's so many Bond channels out there on Instagram that I just think even if I posted every day, I'd still be drowned out by the number of other channels there. Subscribe to the podcast on your preferred platform of choice. It's the best way to keep up to date when a new episode comes out. We should all be on all the regular places, on Google and Spotify and everything else in between, hopefully. If not, you're probably not listening to this if that's your platform of choice, so it's irrelevant. I have forgotten how to end an episode, clearly.
Well, we'll just, I think that brings us to the conclude and say, well, see you next time.
Yes, until that time, take care, and James.
Don't forget to spread that jam.
Spread that jam, everybody, and
cheerio.
I said take care already. You said, oh my God.